Hey everybody, this is Lonnie Summers here on RunningDenver TV, joined by Melissa Minsick, your co-host, and we are coming from a very special show this time. We're here at Runners Roost in Denver, actually getting ready for snow, but it's a very cool day because we had the Women's Trail Sisters here today. Melissa, tell us a little bit more about that.
It was just a really great event highlighting women in trail running. So we had a couple of elite athletes. We, as if I had anything to do with it, Runners Roost had a couple of elite athletes down there having a panel and just talking about all their experiences with trail running in a Q&A format for all of us to learn from them. So it was really, really cool. Glad to be a part of it.
So usually our typical show will have some human interest stories and some gadgets or some coaching, and today we got the human interest stories and the amazing coaching all in one, plus some really cool things, whether you're an ultra runner or you want to go into trail running or just even with your own running, even if you still do road, there's a lot of great information that these very accomplished women have talked about and through an hour panel, which was quite phenomenal.
So today I got to talk to Krissy Moehl, ultra running extraordinaire and also author of her first book, Teaching People How to Learn to Run an Ultra.
And I talked to the amazing Gina Lucrezi, and it was quite amazing hearing from both of those ladies because really they're both very unassuming personalities, and they are so amazingly well accomplished. So you're going to love the interviews.
Hi, welcome back to RunningDenver TV. I'm Melissa Minsick here with Krissy Moehl, trail runner and author of Running Your First Ultra. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this is fun.
So tell us a little bit about your book. What inspired you to write it? What's it about? What should people look for if they want to read it?
It's called Running Your First Ultra, and I was approached by Page Street Publishing last summer to write the book. They find people that are well-versed in what they're doing on the internet, and then they create books out of it. And I just fell in love with the project and the idea. I've been coaching first-time ultra runners for about 5 years now, and so I was pretty insistent on the first ultra type style of book. It turns out it actually has a lot of information that runners that are just getting into 10Ks, 5Ks, marathons, as well as people that have been running ultras for years. There's always something more we can learn, and I just took the voice of talking to first-time ultra runners because that's where my passion lies.
Great. That's really interesting. I was thinking about asking you about that because the book is geared toward ultra runners, but I was thinking I bet there's some things in there that could be applicable to people running shorter distances. So what's like a snippet or two of something that you think is universal to any distance?
The biggest one I would say is the core training. As runners, we get so caught up in the movement and moving and covering mileage and how many miles you ran this week. And I think there's a lot to be said for the counter movements that we can do to keep ourselves strong and healthy and not get injured so that we can keep running. So core is a big one, and I preach consistency. I think it's really important. Even if you only have 20 minutes, get out the door and get it done rather than I'll just do it tomorrow, or I'll do a bigger run this weekend.
Right.
It's actually healthier to keep your body moving daily than it is to weekend warrior it.
True, that's a good point. Obviously, you're very accomplished with some of the things you've done in the past. What's up next for you?
I'm the race director of the Chuckanut 50K, and so this time of year, now I added a book tour, but this time of year is very focused on giving back to the sport and putting on that event. So that's March 19th, and then that's my Christmas. So most people kind of reset their year, Christmas, New Year's. That's my Christmas. So by April, I'll have a clue of what's next for me.
Very cool, very cool. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think this event that we're doing tonight for Runners Roost is
exciting.
Super exciting. I love seeing women getting together and women growing in the sport. The next book I want to write is Running with Boys because I grew up in the sport running with the dudes, so I'm really excited to see women's events coming and women getting together and seeing what they can do when it comes to being out in the wilderness and experiencing trail running.
Great. Krissy, thank you so much for joining us. It's so cool to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us as well. Feel free to visit RunningDenver TV for more information on training tips, gadgets, and more interviews like Krissy's.
Hi everybody, this is Lonnie Summers with RunningDenver TV and RunningDenver.com. I'm here with Gina Lucrezi, and she is an amazing trail runner and ultra runner. I was just reading a little bit about your bio, and I thought it was pretty fascinating is that you ran your second ultra ever, I think, in Iceland, and you won it. And not only that, it was horrible weather, and you had the third best time ever.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. You're right on. It was a little gnarly, but that's what makes it fun. And personally, for me, I like the worse the weather, the more inclement it could be is better for me. So I don't know. It was fun. But I had some friends out there on the same trip, and they were hypothermic, so it's like, oh, it was not good for them. But yeah, so.
Well, great. Well, we're here at Runners Roost, and you're going to be part of this panel tonight. We're going to be talking about trail running and specifically for women. What got you involved in trail running?
To be honest, a long time ago, I used to do a lot of roads, and that was great, but then I kept kind of peering off into the woods and was curious about trails just because it's a little different and a little bit more peaceful, quiet, a little freeing, and it's kind of curiosity. And so I finally decided to give it a shot, and I had a few friends that were already doing it, and they egged me on, and so, yeah. So I went out and did it and got hooked. It's kind of hard to go back to the roads then, so.
So what would be a recommendation for somebody wanting to get into trail running?
Well, I guess, don't be afraid. Everybody, the first thing is they're scared of all kinds of things. Just go to some place you would feel essentially just more comfortable so you don't have things jumping into your head. I know especially a lot of women seem to worry about animals, and I've been running for quite some time. I've never seen a mountain lion or I've seen a bear once, but I've been running for 7 years, so it's kind of, they're not really out there. You have a better chance of getting hit by a car on the road versus doing something out on the trails. But yeah, the best thing is don't be scared, be okay with just trying it out, be open to it, and take things slow. Don't feel like you're going to be able to get out there and run just as hard as you do on the road or a track as you will on the trail. There's a lot more obstacles, so you want to take it slow and just relax and kind of find your way through it.
Now, one of the cool things is you're going to be part of this panel tonight, and I'm noticing that there is quite an age range here. I've seen little girls, and I've seen obviously people that are probably in their seniors years that are here. And one thing that we've obviously noted in road racing is that females now make a majority of those races, but we're really seeing this surgence now of women getting into trail running and the ultras. Why do you think that is?
It's a good question. I know they're more dominant in road, but in trail, I think it's, again, curiosity. In the past, it's super male dominated. Myself, for one, a reason why I'm here is because I would like to try to interest more women into going outside and running trails.
Awesome. So what do you have next?
Let's see. I guess I was about to go to Alaska on a trip, but that just got canceled, so I'm kind of bummed about that. So Leona Divide 50 Mile will probably be my first race, but that's out in April, so it's a ways away. So for right now, just some training and kind of playing in the mountains, doing some reconnaissance on some things I hope to do later in the year. But in the wintertime, I don't do as many races. Kind of wait for the middle season, so summer, the warmer months.
All right. Well, Gina, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you want to check out more interviews just like this, gadgets and tips, make sure you join us at runningdenver.com.
When you're in a race and you're struggling, what mantra do you use, or what sort of phrase do you use to repeat to yourself to keep yourself going?
I don't have a mantra, but it's kind of like acceptance. I just kind of accept the pain and just keep going. And then it does fade. It's not always you're not always gonna feel good, but you're not always gonna feel bad. So I just kind of have that in mind. Other times I just get super angry at the hill, and then I just curse and maybe cry, and then it's done, and then I can run downhill. So yeah, that's what works for me.
Yeah, hills are usually my same as hers. But I always just think, well, okay, I'm going up. It must come down after this. So I'm going to work hard and just deal with it. But I know, so I enjoy the downhill or flats more. And so I'm all right, well, just get through it. There'll be, like you said, it changes. It won't hurt as bad in a little bit. So, and in any ultra and whatnot, you're going to have ups and downs. So you just kind of get used to kind of mentally just, being relaxed and okay, I can get through it. So.
I like to remind myself that I chose to do this. And if it's hurting, that was all kind of part of it. And a lot of times I look around. Somebody asked earlier, how did I find trail running or whatever. And when I found trail running, that's when it all came full circle. I actually get a lot out of being runner when I'm trail running because of the places my legs can take me. So if it's really hurting that bad, then fine, just stop, look around, because I got myself here all by my own self, my power. So that's usually what gets me through. And usually if you're feeling crummy like that, you need to eat.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and it's not just one gel, it's probably 3. Like, you've gotten yourself so low that you're really doubting whether you should be doing this or it hurts or whatever. It's probably time to consume some calories. And that might just brighten your day.
So I think there's some people in here that have either never run an ultra or are thinking about running an ultra. Have you ever run a longer distance race and never at one point felt bad? And and assuming you have felt bad at some point, what are some of the strategies you've used? I know Krissy mentioned eat something. But what are some of the other strategies as you're sitting there thinking, okay, I feel terrible. Like, I want to quit. What do I do? Like, what are the things that you can kind of go through in your mind as like a checklist of like, how can I fix this to make sure I keep going? And yes, that's the question.
Western States last year?
Yeah. So yeah, I know.
We had to hit the reset button on Gina last year. She had a rough time coming into Michigan Bluff, and I just thought it was a really good like example of what you're saying. Like, that's the low. Yeah. I've been there, and it's a
vomit
low,
everywhere.
Low. Yeah.
It was pretty.
Oh,
and
gosh.
it was awful. And it was a full, like, we changed all of our clothes.
Yeah.
We went and sat down in the medical
Little
tent.
embarrassing.
Like,
It's like,
it's all part of it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think there's, you when you start the longest distance you've ever run, I feel like you should make it your goal to finish. And, like, if you've never run 50 miles or 5 miles, make it your goal to finish. What do you need to do to finish? That day, she had to change all of her clothes. Right. I've done the same. That day, she had to change. I know that doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So don't get so
dry clothes
set on you have to be top 10 or you have to finish a certain amount of time or there's just, it's all about finishing. Like, what do I need to eat? What do I need to do to my body? What do I need somebody to walk with me to get me to the next aid station? That ended up being a big piece in what got Gina out of there. And she came into the next, she was done. Like, there was like no talking her into keeping going. And then this girl piped up in the aid station who actually ended up being a good friend of ours, and they walked to the next one, and she ended up dropping at the next one, and this one finished the race. Yeah. So sometimes you just have to do a full reset. But now, like, there's that degree of low, and then there's just kind of, oh, I'm just having a bad day. But what was your goal? Was your goal to finish, or was it to place in the top 10? And I think you were making the comment that, or somebody was making the comment, there's been a lot of DNFs in the sport, and I think it just goes back to what your goal was that day. If your goal was to place in the top 10 and you're in 100th place, well, that wasn't your goal. But if your goal was to finish, then it's time to just hit the reset button, however that looks, and then keep going.
I'd like to know from each of you, what is maybe the one piece of advice, or the best piece of advice you've gotten just for in trail running that someone has given you? And then what was your, like a really great learning experience, whether it's, you made a mistake and then you learned from that, or it's something that finally clicked to make like that whole big picture of running cohesive, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a two-part question. But I'd love to hear something from each of you, because I know it's probably different for each of you.
I don't want to go first. That one's hard.
I have a good story. My first ultra was the Chuckanut 50K, which I'm the race director for. I'm plugging it. It's the third weekend of March. But I ran it in 2000. That was my first ultra. And I was 22 years old, and my mother was there, and she told me that if I wasn't with it at every aid station, that she would pull me out. Like, this is great. Should women run this far? You know, all those questions were coming up. You're too young, whatever. So I would come into every aid station, no matter how I felt, with this like big smile on my face. Oh, everything's good. Like, I'm great. And this guy, Uli Steidel, was pacing me, and he was hauling me out of the aid stations quickly, because I was actually on course record pace in my first race. So there was like this dueling dynamic. I had to prove to my mom that I was okay, but I also was trying to race really hard to stay on course record pace. And I just remember getting past the point of, like, super raw, furthest distance I'd ever gone, and I left the aid station. I was like crying. My mom's the best person. Like, but she couldn't see the tears. Like, I had to keep it honest. Anyways, the next year I was injured. I wasn't able to run, but I was remembered as the smiling girl by every single volunteer. They're like, "You're that girl that smiled at every aid station." And I thought, what a great lesson. So I get to answer your question with the same story, was that if you're like smiling, and what a great way to go through life too, when like life's hard and you're like really, like if you can keep it together and smile, like there's something that happens, like your energy changes, I think, if you're smiling instead of down. And that's my lesson that I've tried to carry through all my races, is just try and enjoy it even when it's hard.
Okay, so the one thing, so my background is more like track and road, and sounds silly, but I was used to like perfect conditions all the time, and then with trail, it's like complete opposite. Like with terrain and just like weather, it doesn't matter. But you're like, if you're on an indoor track and everything, it's perfect. And I remember this one of my coaches said something to me once about like being okay with the inclement weather and embracing it. Because most people hate it. They're like, oh no, it's gonna rain. I don't want to do it because it's gonna be wet and awful and muddy. But it was kind of like, if I could love that and everybody else hated it, I had a way large advantage. And because a lot of people do, it gets in your head, and I don't know, that helped me. And so I did this race in Iceland a few years ago called the Lagavíkur 55K, and it was the worst weather they had in the whole 17 years at that point they had been doing it. And I was out there with some other friends, and they weren't having it. They weren't psyched on it. I was, like, okay, but I like this. I seem to do good in this, because I think it's just a mental state of, like, just embrace it, and I ended up having a great race and winning the race, and my friends that were all bummed about it, one I think dropped out because he got hypothermic, which, obviously it wasn't good conditions, but but I don't know. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you embrace it, you kind of can enjoy, like, the hand you're dealt, whereas a lot of people, if it's not perfect, like, I don't know, I feel like that gives you a big advantage mentally, and a lot of running, though it's tons of physical, it's way more mental, and you can power yourself through it in the worst condition, whether it's, like, climate or how you feel or something. If you can talk yourself out of it, man, you can do anything.
First up in the review, Frosty's Frozen 5 and 10 was on January 16th at Hudson Gardens. Paul Peterson finished first in the 5 mile with a time of 26:52, and also finished first in the 10 mile with a time of 55:37. For the women, Heather Utrata won the 5 mile with a time of 30:14, and Amelia Kraus won the 10 mile in 1 hour and 5 minutes.
The Polar Bear 5K was January 17th at Wash Park. Brandon Hosh took first place for the men with a time of 17:46, and Kristen Jenkins won for the women's race in 2023. In preview, the Broncos are heading to the Super Bowl, of course, and you can too. Well, at least the Super Bowl 5K, that is. It's next Sunday, February 7th at Wash Park. This is the third race in the awesome RunningDenver series and features a ton of fun, including the chance to win Broncos tickets and the craziest fan costume contest. Besides that, with a start time of 10 a.m., you'll be home in plenty of time to catch the Broncos in the big game.
Then next weekend, love will be in the air at Washington Park for the Valentine's Day 5K on February 14th. Of course, this is the next race in the RunningDenver series where you can dress as your favorite couple and features photos with Cupid. Plus, share your love story on the RunningDenver Facebook page and be entered in to win a romantic getaway for you and your Valentine. Hey, we've had a great show. That was a fantastic panel. I'm Lonnie Summers.
I'm Melissa Minsick. Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time on RunningDenver TV.